gentlemen, season's greetings. Welcome to episode 3 of the Citizens in Solidarity Vodcast. My name is Andile Khumalo. I'm still your host as we unearth all of these wonderful stories that are going on at the Solidarity Fund. In this episode, I'll be chatting to Nigel Casey. He's the British High Commissioner to South Africa. Let's kick off our final episode for the year 2020 under the theme Better Together. Hi, Commissioner Casey, welcome to the show. Or is it okay for me to call you Nigel? Is that fine?
I think it's allowed. Yeah. Thanks, Andile. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I guess, like I normally do with all of my guests on this series, let's kick off with you introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about the Office of the High Commission to the UK here in South Africa, and also your journey to becoming a diplomat and your role here in South Africa.
Yeah, great, thanks. So I'm, as you said, the British High Commissioner to South Africa. It's a role I've been in since early 2017, so 3.5 years now.
So Nigel, the United Kingdom and South Africa have always had a special relationship historically and otherwise. We're quite close. There's a lot of movement between the countries economically, politically, and I guess even culturally. How are those bilateral relations now? And to what extent is your office improving the relationship, I guess, between the people of the United Kingdom and South Africa?
Yeah, so one of my personal ambitions is always to work in countries where we have a big, complicated, important relationship. I've worked in India, I've worked in Russia, I've worked in the United States, and twice here in South Africa. And these are all countries with which the UK has a deep historical relationship, and one which matters today. I would say our relationship with South Africa matters a lot to both countries. The UK remains the number one investor here by stock of investment. So our investors are employing thousands of South Africans, responsible for a lot of tax revenue for South Africa's, for SARS and the South African Treasury, and really feel connected and an integral part of the economy. A lot of our biggest companies are dual national companies with headquarters both in Johannesburg typically and in London. And if you look at the sort of big companies that were at the President's recent investment conference, you know, the likes of Vodacom or Anglo American or Investec or Lovo, I mean, these are all big names in the UK as well as in South Africa. So we really feel organically connected. We have a very deep and thick human relationship, right? We have enormous human travel between the two countries. We do about 100,000 visas every year from South Africa. Lots of South Africans have worked either temporarily or permanently in the UK. A lot of your rugby stars are playing at our Premiership clubs, and so and our cricket team is now back here playing you again this afternoon, having only left here about 6 months ago. So we really feel very special, and
we can't get enough of English football, eh?
You can't get enough of English football, exactly.
The COVID-19 pandemic has happened. It affected the entire world. No less, it affected the entire world. In South Africa, we had the national lockdown near the end of March. We're going through a time now where there's fears of a second wave. But the United Kingdom has come to the party in a big way, £6.5 million in support of South Africa's response to the pandemic. Can you talk a little bit more about that to us, the decision behind that, the criteria behind that, and what those funds are being earmarked for?
Sure. So look, when the pandemic struck, we looked at everything we're doing in South Africa and asked ourselves, how can we reorient this program, this piece of work, this partnership to help South Africa through coronavirus? Because it's very clear that this is kind of the number one issue for every country in the world, and we couldn't pretend it was business as usual. So as I say, we looked at the whole suite of our programs, everything we're doing from the health program we run with the South African National Department of Health, to try and improve patient care and care quality. We looked at the partnerships we have with cities like Joburg, like Durban, like Cape Town. We looked at every program we run and looked at what more we could do. And we put a bid to London for extra funds, reflecting the seriousness of the crisis here. And that was the origin of our thinking, which led to our contribution to the Solidarity Fund.
Absolutely, no, much appreciated. But coming closer to home, though, for the Solidarity Fund in particular, there is a 50 million rand donation from you guys, specifically intended on responding to gender-based violence and women's economic empowerment. And as you know, in our country, we're about to enter that phase of that 16 days of activism against the abuse of women and children, which is quite an important time for us. And this is a real social ill here in our country. Could you shed some light on why the specific target on gender-based violence and the economic empowerment of women?
Sure. We all know that gender-based violence is a huge problem globally. It's a problem in the UK, but we know it's a massive problem here in South Africa. Your president has spoken about it repeatedly, has brought in a national strategy, put resources behind that. I was just before speaking to you on a webinar with Minister Pandor, Minister Nkwane Mashabane, and others about gender-based violence and what more can be done here internationally, which really helped to reinforce the reasons why we're doing this. So in practice, we sat down with the Solidarity Fund, which is an institution we're really impressed by, the unique governance mechanisms it offered, the assurance that it offered us about the integrity of the way money would be spent and the impact it's likely to have because of its unique kind of government-private sector setup. And we asked them, where they thought the gaps were in the work they were able to do with their existing funding. And they identified with us two particular shared priorities, one on gender-based violence and the other on helping particularly those in subsistence farming, which is typically women who've been wiped out by COVID, by the first lockdown, and need help to kind of restart their smallholdings. So on gender-based violence specifically, we managed to help about 20 organizations through an organization called Gender Links. And the attraction of doing this with the Solidarity Fund was scale. So the Solidarity Fund said that they thought we could get to about 360 organizations. These are community organizations, women's organizations, by working in partnership with them, using their channels as a vehicle for getting grants to deserving recipients. So that was really what led to this donation. Hence the decision to go with the Solidarity Fund as a partner in delivery, because otherwise, managing 360 individual grants is incredibly labor intensive and not something we could have done ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And lastly, Nigel, as we're going into the festive season now, there's obviously fears of a second wave. We recently heard from the president announcing a couple of restrictions in areas where things seem to be flaring up. This issue of gender-based violence may very well also rear its ugly head. Any words of advice or reassurance for our mothers and sisters and daughters who are going through this time that's meant to be a festive time, a time of relaxation, but may be challenging given, of course, the impact of the pandemic that's still very much with us?
It is, and we've started calling gender-based violence the shadow pandemic because it has risen in tandem with coronavirus and its restrictions. Look, I think that what I said this morning on the earlier webinar is what I'd repeat. Actually, for all the sort of despair about the rising statistics, we do know what works in stopping gender-based violence. We funded a huge study here in South Africa by the South African Medical Research Council. We're implementing the findings of that research. It's really all about delivery and implementation of the things that we know we can do as governments, as individuals, to stop this. So please, I think my message would be, don't despair, focus on what we can all do as individuals and in our organizations.
Focus on what we can do as individuals. Mr. Nigel Casey, British High Commissioner to South Africa, thank you so much for your time. Sadly, I'm a Liverpool fan, so I hope Man United makes it up the log.
Very good to talk to you, Andy. Thank you.